Is traditional tattooing out? Ooh.
Ouch.
As the industry grows, it seems to be getting less popular. I have a theory.
Oh boy.
It's kind of boring.
This is Fred Durst, and you are watching Books Closed, the only tattoo podcast I've ever heard of. Here's your host, Andrew Stortz.
Hey, thanks, Fred. Yeah, drive safe. All right. Okay. Hey, yeah, I am Andrew, and we're back, baby. New episode of Books Closed coming at you. It's Thursday right now. I'm going to be releasing on Mondays, but I just couldn't wait to come back and see you all. It's been about a year, and the next episode will be right away, next Monday already, so fear not. You won't have to wait much longer for more, but this episode is a little bit more of a timely discussion. Many of you had sent in questions to my Instagram at Andrew Stortz for a little Q&A, and I thought, who better than to discuss these questions with than my coworkers, the crew at Worship Tattoo, because these are the guys that I would be having these conversations with daily anyway. Also, very special, just to wet your whistles, to get you back in the groove, I found a little bit of unreleased Filip Leu footage from last year that I want to share with you guys. It feels like a waste for it to just be rotting on my hard drive, so watch through to the end and you will see some very valuable information, some wisdom, just a couple more morsels from Filip from last year, and you tattooers will especially be interested in what he has to share.
There's book threesomes for couples who want to know more.
It's important information.
How to make life even more complicated.
Now, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of these new upcoming episodes. And when we recorded this Q&A, there were a lot of great questions that we discussed, but I'm going to get down to the nitty-gritty right away. And I want to go straight to the one question that you all want to hear. Is this the tattoo apocalypse? This is from Chris Windsor Tattoo.
I'm jumping into this one right now.
Let's just jump
right
into
away.
it because I feel like I see a lot of discussion online about, is it over? I didn't do 30 tattoos today. Is it over? Should I quit? I used to do 30 tattoos, but no longer. Maybe I'll be an accountant. What do we think?
It's weird because a friend of mine had said that he had several friends in tattooing leave recently, and both of them were over 10 years tattooing. I don't think it's over. I don't think it'll ever die. It's never gonna, it might not be what it's always gonna evolve and change. So,
Well, let's define, because some people may not be aware of what we're even talking about, because this is the way I see it, and you guys can correct me if you think I'm wrong. Since the pandemic, it has been a fucking free-for-all. More business than anyone can handle, whether you suck or you're great. And you turn down work constantly, you can't keep up. That lasted until earlier this year, where what I think happened is it went back to normal, the way that it always used to be. I don't think it's any slower than it ever used to be in the past necessarily. I also think that a lot of people maybe didn't do enough for themselves while it was busy to be ready for when it wasn't. Just riding the wave. But that's how it goes sometimes. So what do you guys all think? As far like me, how you've been tattooing as long as me. Does it feel different to you now than it did in the past? Is it like especially slow? Is it especially lacking?
I don't think so. No, it definitely was a huge increase after the pandemic.
Big time.
Lots of people were, I think people just got so stir crazy staying inside. People that normally wouldn't get tattooed were really interested.
It's also the money part of it, because I don't know. I'm sure there's a deep analysis of the economy somebody can do that I'm not aware of. But it did seem like there was more money for people to get tattooed with, or maybe it was that they had less options for how to spend their money, as far as traveling and all that stuff that people couldn't do, which is usually a huge expense people save for.
There's a phenomenon about spending on recreation, though, above a lot of other things.
I remember people used to say, because I started in 2008, and that was like a terrible economic time in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone at that time was saying, that it's better than ever for that same kind of, and I always thought that it was, if you have next to nothing, what are you going to spend your small amount of money on? You're going to do whatever you get the maximum like feeling back from.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you like do something that's truly just for yourself, it's not an investment, it's not anything, it feels a little irresponsible. Like I feel like tattooing kind of checks all the boxes for that. If you're going to spend your last dollar, what are you going to spend it on?
When the pandemic happened and we reopened, I did a lot of tattoos, like for the first time, on people who were a lot older, who were like, I always wanted to do this. Like I feel like things got, like when things get shaken up, people do things they wouldn't, like their bucket list sort of
Yeah, I noticed that too.
things.
What do you think, Bill?
I think there's a lot of things going on in tattooing right now. I think that the economy is, I mean, when it comes down to it, if you have the option of getting a tattoo or buying a bag of groceries, inflation is through the roof. You know, you're going to pick groceries. I know people that have businesses that sell what are essentially considered luxury items, like motorcycles, you know, like dealing shit like that people don't need. And tattoos are kind of, they fall into that category. People don't need them, you know? So I think a lot of times on the chopping block is stuff that's considered like excess, you know, where people are bringing it back down to the essentials, like paying their mortgage or paying their rent. Think about how much rent is now in town for a studio apartment. It's like $2,500, you know, it's like the prices of stuff is exorbitant. And there's also oversaturation. Since I started tattooing in town, the number of tattoo artists in town is quadrupled just in Portsmouth, you know, not to mention like all the surrounding towns that have established shops or created apprentices that go off and start their own studio and start, you know, and it's like multiplying. So I think that kind of dilutes everything, you know, dilutes the customer base. It's just, there's just a lot of stuff going on in tattooing right now that's leading a lot of people to say like, fuck this, I don't want to do this anymore, you know, I don't want this hustle, I don't, you know, social media is like taking over tattooing. So you have to be more than, you can't just do good tattoos anymore. You have to be a good photographer, a good videographer. You have to make engaging content. You have to put your face in it. There's just a lot of stuff that's overwhelming a lot of people. And I think that's why a lot of people are bailing on it and just saying like, I'm going to go be an electrician or, you know, whatever.
Good riddance.
I mean, you know, there's a lot of good tattooers that are.
Is that going to just regulate everything though? Or we get
What's
rid
that?
of, so if we're oversaturated, if a bunch of people bail, is that going to help?
I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is.
And do you think that the demand for tattoos over the same period of time that the number of tattooers has grown?
I think
Has
the
it grown
demand
in a proportional way?
has grown, but I don't know that it's proportional.
I think that demand is dropping because I think that those people who got those bucket list tattoos did it and are now like faced with the reality of how expensive everything is. And then I also think social media and different things like trends change. So I feel like we could be trending away from getting large work and things like that. I don't know. So I feel like there's more people tattooing, but less people want to get tattooed at this time. But that could change.
I disagree with you guys completely.
What's your theory?
Well, I think if you think about the average customer now versus 15 years ago, a lot of people, and this is speaking generally, the average person doesn't just get a tattoo. The average person gets a sleeve or two.
Or three.
Or three, or
Yeah.
four, or more. Like, it's so ordinary, like we were talking about before, for people to get large-scale tattoos, I think, that every customer you get can keep you busy for years.
But how do you get them in the door?
Violence.
See,
Well, that's a whole other question about it.
But that's where I disagree with you on this. I think that when you have multiple shops for like an intro tattoo, some people will come in for like something small,
Mhm.
you know, and they'll engage with you, and then all of a sudden they're like, whoa, they see what tattoos can be,
Yeah.
and then they want something bigger, and then that blossoms into a customer that's long term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you still have both of us still have customers from when we first started.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that when you have people going into shops that are, you know, any other shop, doesn't matter if they're good or bad, it dilutes everything because all of a sudden like that long-term customer is like being pulled away, you know? So you're not able to establish as much of a solid client base.
But are those kinds of shops, if we're talking, and I think the part of the conversation I don't see a lot is kind of distinguishing people in a walk-in shop versus a more custom shop. I think it's a different discussion for different places. What you're saying, I agree with, that you can make a lifetime client from the smallest tattoo ever. We've done it a
million times,
100 times. But do you think that if we're talking about everyone fighting for the scraps, and I don't mean to demean small tattoos or walk-in tattooers at all, but if everyone's fighting for that low-level tattoo customer, not that they're not, you know what I mean, smaller work as far as like how much money that's going to put in your pocket. If everyone's fighting over that, do you think a shop of less experienced people, you know, as you're saying, these shops are popping up, people are teaching people, and then they split off and they make shops and they do all their stuff, are they going to be able to create a lifetime client? Or are we competing with somebody like, I don't feel like I'm competing with somebody who started tattooing 2 years ago. So when I see seasoned tattooers online complaining about it's oversaturated and this and that, well, I understand what they're saying, and I do see it. I see the different amount of people calling and coming through the door and whenever. But am I fighting for the same clients that somebody who started tattooing 2 years ago is? I don't feel that I am.
Why wouldn't you?
Because I don't tattoo the same people that they tattoo.
Well, I disagree because
I don't take on the same kinds of projects that
the
that
people
they do.
that they're tattooing can become people that get tattooed
No,
by
I know.
you know?
I agree.
So I think that it's.
I mean, if somebody's like, I want to get text on my arm, that's not who I've been tattooing for the last 5 years.
I mean, same.
Right.
But at the same time, a lot of the customers that I've done bigger work on and have become clients started off with a text tattoo on their wrist.
I know.
You know?
I know.
I think it's both things.
I'm saying if someone's like, shit, I want to get a sleeve, because these people are still out there. There are still people with money to spend on tattoos. Why would they go to a shop of somebody inexperienced? They're not.
I don't think that they know. I think a lot of people aren't
Sometimes
as
they
educated
don't.
as we assume they are.
So how do we educate them?
Violence.
Now we're getting
Well,
now
somewhere.
we're
no, I
talking.
feel like you educate
That's why you
them
do
when they become
jujitsu.
your
Yeah,
client.
exactly.
Jesus. It all makes sense now.
Yeah, it's all
All
coming
right.
full
I'll be
circle.
there in the morning.
All right,
With
perfect.
my little robe on.
6 a.m.
Oh my god.
What do you think, Mijo? Because Mijo does, and you never know because he doesn't put anything online. Mijo does very large scale, beautiful Japanese tattoos. And as far as like getting new clients in the door, I mean, you moved here from Colorado to work with us in 2021.
Mhm.
So in hindsight, it was a great time to move and start over again.
Mhm.
I think we didn't realize it at the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've stayed pretty steady throughout the time that you've been here, and you've been able to build a really solid clientele where there aren't a lot of other tattooers doing the kind of work that you do, certainly not at the level that you do. So I feel like what you do stands out when people see it because it is specific, but it is like you're looking for clients that are high commitment.
Yeah, I think it is both things. I think there's almost two types of clients. There's the people that are now educated through social media usually. They see all these high profile tattooers and what's being done in tattooing, and then they actively research it, and then they find these top tier shops and top tier tattooers and seek them out. There is also the person that doesn't know, because most people don't study art. They just really don't know. They don't know hardly anything about it, and they just come in. You know, some people come in and say stuff like, "Hey, I'm walking in. I'm hoping to get a sleeve today," or, "Hey, I'm walking in. I'm hoping to get this Japanese tattoo or something." And like, "Oh, okay. Did you research shops?" Like, "Oh, I saw you guys. I was driving home from work. I saw you guys, so I stopped in."
It's next door to my favorite gas station.
So there is both types of people. Some long-term clients, it's just happenstance. They just happen. This happens to be the place that they, get coffee from next door, and they saw it and they thought they'd stop in. Or my neighbor got tattooed and recommended you guys. There's a large percentage of people that don't even know where to start. They don't, it'd be like, oh, we got to have musicians play at our wedding. Like, I don't know anything about classical music. Like, who, my aunt, hey, auntie, do you know anyone that plays violin? Like, and they would take any suggestion. And
that's always been a part of tattooing, though, because we
Mhm.
can't expect people to know everything. And it's almost better when they don't know everything or
Yeah.
think they know everything, because we can teach them stuff. And I feel like you always do a good job of really educating your clients in a way that gets them on track with what you want to do, if that's something that they want to proceed with. And I feel like you gain a lot of trust by being that like beacon of information for people.
yeah,
And that's
sometimes
always been a
people,
dynamic of tattooing.
yeah, sometimes people don't know it until they see it. But yeah, I feel like it is both. There's been really cool clients that don't know, I guess me included, first getting tattooed, and you don't know what you're really about, and you can't really seek out the good stuff. Sometimes the best stuff doesn't even make sense the first time you see it.
Right. And that's why I like to think that if you've got the goods, it doesn't matter how many tattooers there are. But that brings back to your question, how do you get those people here?
Exactly.
So, and that's another thing that a lot of people resent social media and the way the algorithm is. And you got to do more than just tattoos. You got to do video. You got to do this stuff. But I think that it's always been that way, as in terms of like the internet age of tattooing. People are always going to connect more with a person than a tattoo. So the more you give of yourself, and I know a lot of people don't like that, the more you give of yourself, people are going to connect with you. And you can, like, how can you replicate the way Mijo has a consultation with a client before you even meet somebody? Put some stuff online. Like, the shit that people resent is the stuff that keeps me excited about how can you like market yourself as a tattooer, like share something. And I think that it's always been that way. And I know that when I started putting goofy ass shit online, I got busier because people connected with me as a person in addition to the tattoos that I did.
Can I throw a question out there? Just because I think as someone who's like, oh, I'm an apprentice now, I'm like coming into tattooing in a time period where all I see, or often what I see on social media is like tattoo apocalypse, right? Like, or like people talking about like what a terrible time in tattooing it is to like have to get clients and all that. And I'm like, man, am I walking into tattooing like at the worst time ever? But I have
all this to say, yes, you are.
So I have no experience to back that up. So when I hear that from people or I see that, I wonder, and you guys know the answer to this because you have way more experience, is like most things, there's a cycle to everything, right? So like, is this just like part of the cycle and you saw this 10 years ago and it's going to just change because it's literally just constantly changing?
Yeah.
Or is this actually like the worst you've ever seen in your career of like being able to get clients? I ask everybody that.
It's just, you have to go through these different avenues and you have to pursue different things, like Andrew was saying, through the algorithm. For me personally, it's always been about doing like a solid tattoo and having a connection with my client, the person that's in front of me, a human being, not putting it out into like this virtual world where it's like, I got to do the song and dance and, all that shit. It's like, that stuff doesn't really interest me. It's more the connection that I have with my clientele. It's the experience that I'm able to give them. Like, I mean, our shop is catered to that. It's like, people come in, they're like, whoa, and it's the experience of being here. And it's the experience of getting tattooed and having a conversation and having a connection with that person. That's what's important to me. So for me to have to put that out there on the internet, it's just like, I don't know, like, it's hard for me to replicate that. It's hard to replicate what Mijo has. It's hard to replicate what you have or what Kayleigh has or even what Andrew has. Like, truly, like when I see your videos, like it doesn't capture fully who you are, it's like a certain aspect of your personality, but I don't feel like I could do that where it's like it captures what I want it to capture or it projects what I want it to project. I'd rather do that in person with someone.
Of course. Well, the reality is everyone is different. We all have different personalities. We all have different approaches and different ways that we do this same thing. And and what works for me will not work for you and will not work for everybody, and vice versa. Some people are really good at the internet. Some people are really good with their clients in person. Some people are really good with this and that. And it's just about finding how it works for you. I agree that the experience you give while somebody gets tattooed is the most important thing, because that is what matters. But as far as all the internet shit, that's how you get them in the door. I mean, when it comes down to it, this is a business like any business, like a coffee shop, like whatever. How do you make people interested in coming into your business? Sometimes you have to do dumb shit.
Yeah, but it's always in the past, and I guess maybe it's just the natural evolution of things, but in the past it's always been about doing good tattoos.
Yeah.
And that's not enough anymore. I think that's where a lot of people are getting lost.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think it is about doing good tattoos, but it's about how can I show people that I do good tattoos in a way where they hear it. That's how I look at like the marketing side of what we do.
Yeah, and I think that's currently that's the case, but I don't know that it's always been that way.
Maybe. Well,
I think when we first started, we put out good tattoos and we gave a good experience to people, and it was like it created a clientele. It's word of mouth. It was, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
And that was enough. And now it's like this extra.
Well, it's how are people looking to find a tattooer? It's different.
Yeah,
so we
that's
have
true.
to adapt to that.
Yeah, it's very true.
And I don't think I see a lot of people posting like, oh, maybe I'm not posting enough or I'm not doing the right kind of stuff. I don't think how we post or market ourselves or anything really is like the huge problem that anyone is having. If someone's slow right now, it's not because they're not posting enough. I don't think that. We are truly just in a lull as far as like people spending on tattooing, I think, just as a whole. And that's something that we can't control. And that is what it is. And the way I see it, it's the long game, because same thing with tattooing all the time anyway. Everyone always used to say, remember December, because every December you're going to sit on your ass and do nothing. And that was every single year.
Yeah.
We haven't had a December like that in years, so we forget.
We've talked about that. I had a conversation with Kenley the other day, and you and I have talked about this.
How many
where it was
times
like,
did we sit and do no tattoos in a day?
Yeah, 0 days,
and we didn't,
sometimes
and
0
we
weeks.
never said, it's over.
Yeah.
We're like, fuck yeah, we get to eat lunch all day.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's true. And what you're saying is valid too, where it's kind of coming back to what it was. But I think that there's certain other dynamics that are in play as well, where people are seeing this kind of hopelessness where it's like, it's never going to go back, But
I understand that feeling, because it's like when your bank account is affected by it,
Yeah.
it's hard to be hopeful when you're feeling the pressure of stuff.
and
So
I think
get
you
it.
have to believe that it's cyclical, where it's going to bounce back, or, I keep hoping that, the election is tomorrow. So I'm hoping that, if the world doesn't burn to a crisp, then, tattooing might come back.
Yeah, I don't know
Fingers
how much it has
crossed.
to do with the election, because I feel like people around the world are talking about this.
Yeah, the
being
election, I feel
slower.
like the election has a lot to do with it. I think people are fearful right now, They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what the outcome's going to be, good or bad,
It's going to be bad either way.
Yeah, exactly. But, fingers
Either
crossed.
way, half the country's going to be
Tattoos.
bummed tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
The best thing we can do is take the time, if someone is slow, take the time to do something for yourself. Do better. Get better at doing tattoos shit.
Do better.
Not do better.
Just do better.
Take the extra time and do something with it, whether that's work on drawing, work on painting, do whatever, something that makes you feel good. If it's take more days off, then do that. If it's you want to spend time with your family more, then do that, because that benefits everybody all the time. Free time is never a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree with that, but
Don't
it's
sit at the
also-
shop and wallow and feel fucking sorry for yourself because you're slow. Like, enjoy the time. If that's all you can do,
Yeah, sure.
why not? Tell me why not.
If you're saying get better at tattoo shit, it's like,
Well, I'm just saying spend time and like get ready for when it's busy.
yeah, and hopefully it does
Make
get
a
busy
website,
again.
make an email list, stop booking your shit on Instagram. There's a million things that people can do better for themselves
Yeah,
that you don't have time for when you're balls to the wall tattooing all the time.
Yeah.
So take the time and like get your shit ready.
yeah.
Eh?
But it's also when you're saying like get better at that stuff, it's that stuff that is extraneous to tattooing. It's like marketing stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, that's running your business. We all run our own businesses.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a system here that I feel benefits everybody.
I totally agree. I mean,
as far as organization, the shit that none of us want to think about, we worked
It's
out a
all
system
automated.
that we're all plugged into, and we all get to enjoy not answering emails ourselves. We have a person here
Yeah.
who does it for us. Like, figure that stuff out one time, and then your life is better from it. That's just one example of how you can spend your time if you're slow.
yeah, but
Or
that's assuming that you have a clientele to fall back on, or that there's going to be a clientele coming in.
in the example, why would somebody have no clientele to fall back on?
The area that they're in is completely saturated with tattoo shops. You know, like there's a lot of different things that could be happening or explaining it. They're in an area that's economically hit by, you know, whatever. So I think that to just, you know, take a step back and then gear up for like a busy season, you know, it's kind of like putting the cart before the horse, you know?
You could look at it that way.
Or I feel like you're saying you're just setting up a foundation. Like
I'm
set
saying
up,
take the time to do the stuff that you don't have time for when you're busy. And it doesn't even have to be that. I'm saying take a month off. If you're not making money, don't go to work.
I mean,
But what if you can't
that
pay your
would be
rent?
nice.
Well, then you're not going to pay it by not working at work either.
No,
I'm being extreme here.
No, I know what you're saying. Like, it would be nice to enjoy that time off. Like, I love the idea of having extra time to do whatever. But I think that after a certain point, depending on how long the slow stays,
I agree.
you're not enjoying your time off anymore because you're like, I can't feed my family.
Yeah.
And that's
Obviously,
why
there's a break. I understand. I'm not acting like there's no breaking point. Of course
Yeah,
there is.
that's why-
I mean, I
Financially
like
is the
the
breaking
I
point.
like the idea of that, and like actually getting to have time for like other things. Like, that's nice. That's like work-life balance. That's healthy.
And maybe I'm trying. And maybe I'm speaking to somebody who things aren't as dire for.
Yeah,
I'm talking to someone who's like doing less tattoos.
that's
I
why
understand.
that's why tattooers are quitting. They're taking all the time off
You're like,
forever.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm happy for him.
it's a super long vacation from tattooing.
In the age of information, people can research marketing techniques and advertisement techniques as tattooers and be like, oh, this is how I grow my brand, my business. And they get really good at that part and not even necessarily at tattooing. Like they're, you know, a decent tattooer, really good at marketing themselves. They're super, super busy. You have to learn that side of it. And I'm with Bill. I'm not particularly fond of that. I'm not particularly good at it. I try to pretend like it doesn't exist. But I think that's why some people are like, what do you mean tattoo you know, some people are booked for months and months and always are. And then there's other people that are just, oh, I hope something comes in the door, you know. I feel like that's where I'm at, you know. I'm like, man, I wish people would just come in, you know. I wish people would just know that we're, you know, like this top tier tattoo shop, that everyone that works here is really good at tattooing and just come to us and, you know, but
Yeah. And I do also think that we often find clients that are like-minded to us. So I think people who double down on it and say, I hate the internet, I'm not doing it, I'm just a fucking tattooer, I do this. There's plenty of people who want to get tattooed by people like that too. But how are they going to find them if they're not posting online? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just...
a newspaper ad.
Violence.
I know a lot of people can say it feels lame that you have to play the internet game, but that's where we're at.
I think
And so
that's
do
where
you
we're at.
want to sit and complain about it, or do you want to do something for yourself? That's how I feel about it. And
Mhm.
and I know a lot of people are going to listen to this and think that I'm lame for being an internet person.
This podcast is going to be on the internet, is it?
No,
Okay.
definitely not.
Just
No, I wouldn't
check.
do that to you
All
guys. So we got this next question from Adam_Ruff. It says, might we see some more external regulation since the massive influx of people tattooing? And in what form might it come in?
Oh, government.
Might we see it?
Mayhaps we shall.
Perhaps.
I mean, I think with the massive influx of people that brings more attention to tattooing, and I mean, we were just, when was it, 2 years ago, with the licensing board we had to go to, and they were trying to pass some measures to gain more oversight into tattooing in New Hampshire and requiring shops to bear licenses. And so I think the more people that are doing it, the more attention it brings to it. So there's always going to be something that government's trying to interfere or, regulate or stick their fingers into whatever.
I think we can all agree that that sucks because we've never seen a good version of it that actually has people's safety at the forefront.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it always seems to come from people who don't fully know enough to regulate something, but are still like fully changing and expecting certain stuff from tattooers.
Yeah, and they're wholly invested in whatever policy they want to enforce, regardless of whether it has anything to do with what we actually do or not.
Yeah. I think there's a level of regulation that could be positive, but I don't think it would ever end right at that line. And that's the problem with it.
Yeah. It always goes overboard.
Another question from Tony Tiger Tangerine.
Ooh.
Hey,
Yeah, I want to be friends with
Tony.
that guy.
Thanks for calling in, Tony. Your question reads as follows. Is traditional tattooing out? Oof. As
Ouch.
the industry grows, it seems to be getting less popular. I agree.
That's
the trend cycle.
that's what yeah. They said it. Tony said it.
Thanks,
That's how
Tony.
I feel.
I don't think you're off on that. I think there was like traditional tats were the jam, like
Yeah.
for a lot of people for a while, and now it's on the cooler side of the trend cycle. There's still people that get it.
Yeah.
Plenty. I always wonder, like, since we've been tattooing, was that kind of on the first wave of traditional tattooing being like coming back as again like a novelty or as like a vintage thing?
I think
Because
so.
before that it was just tattoos. They weren't called traditional tattoos. They were just tattoos.
Yeah, I think so. I think with the advent of, like Sailor Jerry rum, coming out, I remember when that came out, and that was kind of the renaissance of traditional tattoos.
Traditional rum.
Traditional rums. Yeah.
How do you think people see traditional tattoos? Why do you think it would not be popular now? Like, how do you think that not tattooers, how do you think other people see traditional tattoos?
I have a theory.
Yeah, what's your theory?
Oh, boy.
I think that right now we're coming off of a solid however many years of many tattooers doing traditional tattoos technically at such a high level, but pulling only from the limited imagery, like verbatim.
Yeah.
It's like Smith Street was the jam and everyone wanted to do Smith Street tattoos. And so generation or maybe multiple generations have now done that, and it's kind of boring.
I think that most people too, just casually looking in on tattooing, they see hyper realism. They see all these technically astounding tattoos.
Well, I think that's what always gets people in the door.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never paid any mind to tattooing, are you going to be impressed by a grim tiger done at the highest level?
Yeah.
Or like an ultra realistic color portrait of a woman crying with fucking butterflies shooting out of her head
Yeah.
on some like very fit person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
give me a break. I mean, that's
I like
just
how you
like,
added the fit person.
Mhm.
at the
well,
end
but
of that.
but
Well,
talking about social media, that's
I
part of
think
it.
about-
It's like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
many factors that
Yeah.
play to it.
I absolutely think that that's a thing. The social media thing with like bodies and like what is trendy fashion wise right now, I
Yeah.
feel like is a callback to a time that people weren't getting tattooed like with American traditional tattoos, and it's a lot of bodies and a lot of like people are asking for lower back tattoos and just the little things.
Well, I think that like fine line stuff has become aligned with like the high fashion world.
Yeah.
When you see like runway models, you see in print ads
Yes.
for these fashion brands, all this stuff, they're like tattooed, but it's almost always minimal, fine line, just outline, basic, that kind of stuff. So people see that as like, that's the shit. That's because all those brands are aspirational. Like, oh, I want to wear that brand. I want to drive that car. I want to do this stuff. And if the people are tattooed in that way, then, this is the way that I can do that.
Mhm.
I also think, I never thought about it till right now, but we're talking about all this stuff. Maybe just the nature of traditional tattooers being resistant to the internet and all that stuff, is that not helping the popularity of traditional tattooing online? Because they're not necessarily going to be the ones who are really pushing super heavy versus the like bang bang kind of shops who are like probably have professional social media managers on staff, or at least like advising them to really show their tattoos in a particular way that resonates online. Whereas traditional tattoos are like, I'm not fucking putting it up.
I mean, I know traditional people that specialize in traditional tattoos that are really hustling and, you know, pushing the social media game.
Yeah.
Um,
But as a whole,
maybe not, you know. I think it all depends. I think there's tattooers that know that they need to market stuff. They need to kind of strike while the iron's hot because they specialize in a certain type of tattooing, and they have to, in the back of their head, have this inkling that it's not going to last forever. If they know anything about tattooing, they know that trends shift. You know, people's people being drawn to a certain style, it's shifting, constantly shifting. So maybe they're taking advantage of marketing more than traditional tattooers do, you know, just because they know that it's a fleeting thing. And maybe traditional tattooers are like, it's been around since, you know, since the 1920s, you know, so we don't have to worry about it going out of style. But it's a trend. It's one that's lasted a little bit longer than I think most, because I think it falls in with Japanese tattooing in a way. You know, it's kind of timeless because tattooing has made it timeless.
yeah.
You know,
I don't think it's ever fully out of style. I think
No,
when we're
I don't think
talking
so
about
either.
trends, we're talking about like very specific, like just the cycle of stuff. I personally believe that traditional tattoos look good forever, and Japanese tattoos for all those exact reasons.
Yeah.
They're styles of art that were made to be tattooed.
Hmm.
So that can never be not a good thing.
But I also think that the rules of traditional tattooing apply to what we all do here, regardless of whether it's a quote unquote traditional tattoo. We all follow the rules of, like, you know, bold colors, bold lines.
Well, that comes down to having a foundation as a tattooer that a lot of people have been acting like you don't need
Yeah, 100%.
the last few years.
Yeah.
And I think that times like this are a testament to having that foundation where you can fall back on doing other kinds of tattoos and not just the kind that you've deemed that you do.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed.
And so I think that while maybe some seasoned tattooers are also leaving because it's not working out for them, which is unfortunate. Someone who spent over 10 years tattooing, for them to leave over what's happening right now, that's truly unfortunate. But I think we're also losing a lot of 1 to 3 year tattooers right now who almost never had a chance because they didn't actually get the foundation, like Kenley. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I was like, whoa.
I'm just kidding. If that was true, that would be our fault.
Should take some time off, Kenley.
Oh, no.
Couple months, couple years.
Yeah, a year,
see what happens.
2.
Okay, I got one here.
Go find yourself.
We got another question from Johnny P. What do you think about these private studio people charging thousands of dollars for half-day, full-day rates? These people will say out loud how much they love tattooing, but to me it seems like they're trying to tattoo as little as possible while living some type of influencer lifestyle.
Good for them.
That's the dream.
It'd be a shame to make a living, Johnny. No, what do we think about that? I think we all know the type of person that Johnny is referring to, but is that actually a type of person that is so widespread? Maybe there's more people acting like that's their life than actually are living it, but is it enough to worry about?
I don't think so. I think if you want something from someone, you pay the price. That's the price it is.
And last year we were talking about Tattoogate when Katie Vaughn was here, and we were kind of joking around, having fun with it. Someone sent me a shitty email about it after. But I truly believe that you can charge anything for a tattoo as long as you're not like pulling the wool over someone's eyes. I don't mean you wait till the end of a tattoo that should be $200 and you're like $6,000 now. But I mean, if like you're direct, it's communicated, they know what they're getting into, you hold your end of the deal up the way you say you're going to. I think any tattoo is worth whatever someone wants to pay for it, just like a painting, just like a car, just like anything.
Yeah, it's a luxury item, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think resenting people for making too much money is something that we should do. We should be, when I see someone who charges a shitload of money, I think, hell yeah, it's possible. Not that I
Yeah.
can do it like they do, but how is that a bad thing for tattooing? Unless people are getting ripped off.
well,
And maybe that's what he's referring to.
that's the perception. I mean, if you go in and you feel like you're getting ripped off, that's one thing, but that's on the tattooer. You know what I mean? Whoever that happens to be.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like I charge what my work is worth, and I'm comfortable with that. You know, whether other people find it too expensive. I'm sure there's other people that are like, oh man, Billy's like crazy expensive. You know what I mean? Like crazy
Yeah.
expensive.
Well, we've all
Or
gotten
they
like
f-
crazy reactions when you give a price to somebody. Because
Yeah.
everyone's has a different baseline for what they expect or what's
Yeah,
reasonable.
you could tell 10 people do the same tattoo on 10 different people and give them the same price. And some people are going to be like, well, that's really pricey. That's expensive.
Yeah.
And, the other half is going to say like, oh, wow, that's really cheap. You know, and some people will think like, that's exactly what I thought it was going to be. So it's on the client and it's on the tattooer. That's just, you can't resent someone for making money
Yeah.
or spending it.
I think the day rate goes to marketing yourself in that manner. I have a friend in Denver that has a very successful shop. All the artists are day rate artists. They all do, just about everyone does geometric tattooing. They're all booked out for months. They all do day rate. They all, are very good at having a social media presence and cultivating this very specific product. And so it seems like a way to streamline that of we're going to be here either, 4 hours minimum. We're either going to be here all day or half day. So that's what it is for a lot of people now.
Well, some of us want to work on one person all day. And then I think finding those clients who want to get tattooed like that, well, how is that a bad thing?
Mm-hmm.
And same thing if you don't want to do a tattoo over an hour and you just do a bunch of smaller tattoos in a day, then that's the clients that you should find as well.
Yeah, like if you're in the city and you're a walk-in shop, like that doesn't make sense. You want to have people coming and going all day long, and that's just not what they want. You know what I mean? It's a high volume. There's high volume shops, and then there's very specific clientele catered shops, or at least artists within shops that cater to a very specific market, and it makes perfect sense to do things that way.
Yeah. So now let's add the more controversial layer to it and then add on in our imaginary scenario here that they're also living some type of influencer lifestyle. Is there a problem with that?
I don't think so. I think
No.
like you were saying, if you're upfront
They might
about
not
it,
be your kind of person, but again,
Yeah.
they're just finding their kind of clientele who appreciates somebody who like lives in the hills and has a cool house and like goes on airplanes a lot and shit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's douchey to me. But
And
does
again-
it matter?
but again, if it allows people, if people connect with that,
That's exactly.
or if they aspire to that and they're like, man, I want to be like that person, I want to get tattooed by them to
Yeah.
like gain some of that energy, I think that's fine. And if you're upfront about it, well, what's the problem? It's like if you want this, if I have a banana and I'm like, it's $1,000, and someone comes to like, fuck, $1,000 banana, I'll take it. It's like, what's the big deal?
Well, I think that maybe we lose sight of what motivates people to choose their tattooer, where we're evaluating the art. Because I know for myself, I've always chosen to get tattooed by people whose work I really liked. And a lot of times, sometimes I didn't know what that person even looked like. And this is like before the internet. But even still, there's a lot of tattooers that I follow and I love their work. I don't know what they look like because they don't put themselves out there in that way. They let their tattoos speak for themselves. And some people, it really does work even still. But I think some people who maybe are just more of a fans of a style, or maybe they just want to be tattooed, they're not necessarily maybe even able to evaluate somebody's work the way that we might. And the thing that pushes them over the edge is that someone's cool as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
On to the next. From Sky James. Do you think clients have unintentionally been conditioned to wait for deal days rather than set up regular appointments or start large-scale work due to an oversaturation of flash events and special deal days like Friday the 13th? Pertinent right now. I saw a lot of people that said they'd never do Friday the 13th again. They're all doing them this year. Which, for the record, I don't think there's any problem with. Do whatever the fuck you want. But I have always kind of thought that. People wait once you give a deal. I don't think there should ever be a discount on tattoos. I see people saying 20% off. Like it's, if we're talking about like commodifying tattooing, once you start taking 20% off tattoos, like what the fuck is that?
It's whatever you want it to be.
Well, the thing I used to hate when we're doing mostly walk-in kind of stuff, my least favorite interaction with somebody about to get tattooed is when we try to simplify and say, what do you want to spend? Just so we're on the same page. And then they will refuse to give a number. Maybe they feel like they don't know what it should cost. I get it. There's a lot wrapped up into it. Nobody wants to like offend or whatever. But it gets down, a price comes out, you can instantly tell that's way too much for them. Like, oh shit, well, okay, so I was going to get a tattoo of my dad's glasses with his name. I was going to have his birth and death dates and the favorite song we used to like. Well, how much would it be if we didn't do the dates? And how much would it be if we made the glasses a little smaller? How much would it be if we did more simple on the font? And it's like you're assigning a dollar value to every little tiny piece of the design. That's my least favorite way to like navigate that interaction with somebody, because it's just like, oh God, but it's like completely commodifying every single little stroke that you make on a tattoo. And again, I understand why that happens. They're trying to like get the tattoo as close to what they want at a price that's comfortable for them. So I'm not saying that they're wrong to do that, but as far as like discounting your tattoos, I don't think it should ever be that way. I don't think you should. The price is the price.
Yeah, again, it comes down to, as long as you're upfront with people about what's going on. Typically, when we have that budget conversation, if I ever have that conversation with someone, it's usually like, listen, if you have an amount that you're comfortable spending, I can draw to that amount. But
that's the thing. There's no discount. It's like,
it's not a discount.
If you don't like the price I gave you, which I'm just basing on what I think it's going to be anyway.
Exactly.
Tell me the price.
Yeah. I don't think that's a discount, though. I think that's just saying you're drawing to whatever budget they have.
That's just accommodating.
Like you
client.
can trick it out for $500, or you can make it a simpler, more direct graphic tattoo for $200.
Right.
You
want to spend this much. This is what we can do.
Yeah.
And if it's good for them, you do it. If not, then that's fine. But they know where they're at. But to be like, okay, you want this? Well, we'll do 20% off for St. Patrick's Day. Like, it just feels shitty. And for the same kind of people that might complain about other tattoo stuff being like, it's over, the magic's gone, like, talk about stripping whatever we want to pretend magic is by doing that sort of shit.
I don't think people are, I don't know. I don't think people are conditioned
is it maybe just a snappy way to make people feel like they're getting value? And it's just another way to describe what's happening anyway.
Well, I think you could say that it's marketing. Like, it's another way to market yourself. If you're slow and you're like, okay, I'm going to offer a deal because I need to feed myself, whatever, I can't blame people for doing that. But do I think that people are looking for that because it's everywhere all the time right now instead of going and getting a full price tattoo? Yes.
You think people are sacrificing full price tattoos for Friday the 13th tattoos?
Yeah, well, because I don't think it's just Friday the 13th. Like, I feel like I see it all the time on social media right now. Like, this month,
like
Halloween
special,
$100 to $200 tattoos off this sheet. Like, I see that all the time now. So it's like, why would your client set up a custom tattoo with you when they know that you're doing that every other month?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is there a better way to approach that sort of thing? Because I do think it's cool to do like a customer appreciation kind of thing.
Yeah,
like you'll do a sheet of flash, and like some of your strong regulars will come in on those kinds of days, and I think that that's great.
Yeah, and I don't think that that's bad. When he's asking that question, I'm hearing like, or I'm thinking of all the stuff I'm seeing that's like regular. I'm seeing it a lot. It's like Tuesday or like whatever the celebratory thing is like anything now. I don't know.
I think there's ways to do customer appreciation stuff. Like one of the more successful or popular ones lately is the get what you get.
Yeah.
And if you have some, if you say tattoos are $100, you load a, gumball machine with tattoos that are $100. You just draw them and this is $100 and you put $100 tattoos in there. It doesn't have to be like a $300 tattoo, then, you're discounting. Back to Sky's question though, I think I've seen videos in the past years where people are like, okay, when you go in, you need to negotiate, it's like this, like you're buying a chicken in a marketplace or something, it's not like an experience. You're trying to get the best deal and kind of whittle it down. And, so I think that some people do that. I don't see it as much here. I think when we were doing walk-ins, it was a little more prevalent because people are coming in off the street and you don't know who you're going to get. You don't have a cultivated clientele. You have just random people. And you never knew who you were going to deal with when they walked through the door. But
Look, I used to think it's crazy that people would pick their artist based on a Yelp review. But when I think about it, that's the same way that you hire anybody.
yeah,
Like if I'm going to hire a roofer, I don't know shit about roofs. And I don't know anyone who roofs.
Yeah.
So I look on and I read reviews.
you
So
look at Google,
can I-
you'll get Google reviews or
Yeah.
Yelp reviews or whatever.
So why, I mean, we know why it should be different because there's so much more wrapped up into it. But could you say the same thing about anything? A dentist? Of course.
Yeah.
We're not special. Okay, I feel differently. Thanks. I really do. No, that's a good way to look at it. Big thanks to my worship crew, Bill, Kayleigh, Kenley, and Mijo, for sitting down with me and going through all of your questions. Here we are at the end, and as promised, here is that unreleased footage from last year with Filip Leu.
This would be fucking insane. Things I wanted to, I was going to show you these tubes here. All the tubes I have at the moment are made by Richard Pinch. Good luck iron. And it really is a thing of beauty. It's made out of one piece. It's machined out of a solid bar that has a central hole in it. So they have to machine off the end. They have to machine down this side, pierce it. Then they have to flatten the end. To make one of these tubes takes 13 steps. I went up to visit him in Aberdeen. Now these big magnums like this are 35. Nobody was using these before, and it was started to really annoy me. It's like fucking at least 15 years ago now. I started wanting to make bigger needles, and I needed help. And there's a tattooer who lives down the hill in Yverdon called Perf, guy who I've been tattooing since I'm like 15 or 16 years old. Very old customer. He had a workshop. He's also a mechanic. He works on cars and bikes. So with him, we spent about 2.5 years researching the right tube, the angle, and just kept making prototypes with him of different ideas, and finally got something together we liked. And then I met Richard Pinch, and he took all the work we developed so far, and he ended up making this a one piece. I love these tubes. They're indestructible. They're really great. Easy to clean too, because it's only one piece. There's nowhere for there's no screws, and there's no bits where the blood can hide, This is something I'm very proud of, though, of all the things over 40 years to come up, because nobody was working with larger than 15, maybe, Magnum. And I talked to a lot of even old timers like Lyle Tuttle and Hardy and these guys and Bob Roberts, and they'd all said, yeah, no, bigger than that doesn't work, no good. But I got to thinking, the Samoans, they use these massive needles. The Japanese got 38 needles, 3 layers. Changed the way I tattoo. Made a lot of stuff possible that was not possible before, just because it's such a time saver. You would think, intuitively, you'd think it's more painful, but it's not, which really doesn't make any sense, but it's the way it turned out.
What was it like the first time you got to use a really big mag?
Terrifying. I was afraid because everybody had told me it wouldn't work. And I kept having this idea that it was like trying to fill in a wall with a fucking small brush and not being allowed to use a roller. It's just frustrating. It was really frustrating. Even today, the 35, now that we use, my friend Beat, who works here with me, he uses it every day. I use it almost every day. Sometimes I want bigger. I know I've seen these 100 needle magnums on the market now. Might be good for blackout. I don't know about, because the bigger the needle, the simpler the design needs to be, which is a good thing in the long run. Detail is the enemy of a good long living tattoo. Too much detail in tattooing today won't last. Cannot last. Tattooing is not compatible with details like that. It's just not. Skin's a living, aging medium that's just going to spread with time unless you've got really good genetics. It's unavoidable. There is no way around it. Doesn't matter how softly or how shallow or how delicate you work. You go too delicate, too soft, too shallow, it's going to fall out. You spend too long on it trying to refine it, it'll blow out, and you get it right, it's just going to fade anyway. I mean, all tattoos fade. That's just the way it is. So this tool, the 35 and the 25 and even the 19 Magnum, are good things. They make tattooing simpler, bolder. Bold will hold. All these old rules were based upon a truth. Same thing for my shaders. I mean, I used to make a lot of needles when I sold the needles. For my mom and my dad, every week I'd sit down and knock out 150 needles. And if this is the needle, if we talk about a Magnum, a lot of the needles that are being sold today are sold up to this point, leaving the needles free at the end, which is very good for realistic work. I know the grimy Black Claw, he's sold about 1/3 and leaving these free. The needles I have that are made by Alvin Ion, they're 50% free. So I would call them brushes. I'll show you. This is Ion. If you look at the needle, I don't know if you can see it soldered up to there, which makes them very flexible.
So what does that do for you?
I can work deeper, faster without destroying the skin. It's good for pounding in color, and where it's not super good is if you want something for hyper-realistic, hyper-precision. The other needle is better, the one that's soldered right up to the end. But with this one, if you try and bury it and go fast, you chew up the skin. So it depends what you're trying to do. Same like this is what's considered a shader needle, actually. It's a 14. And if you could see, it's soldered 1/3 open. It's soldered to here. So that's like pretty much 1/3. I line with that. Gives you a nice big line. I will use a tight 11 and a single. But these loose needles, we call them brushes because they're more like that. They give you more leeway. They do less damage. You can work, like I say, deeper and faster. It's all about getting the color in the skin. That's my pleasure. Don't want to hang around too long. I want to get it done.
Got shit to do.
Yeah. Doing this too long. I can sit there all day.
Damn, what a guy, huh? You didn't forget, did you? Did you see that episode last year? It was actually a couple. 2 parts with Filip Leu. If you are watching this and you watched all the way to the end and you didn't watch those, you gotta go back in the meantime while you're waiting for the next episode, okay? You gotta watch them. It's hours and hours of great stuff. Next episode, I'm heading to Ann Arbor, Michigan. I'm getting tattooed, and I'm going to have some chats, some chit chats with one of my favorite tattooers, Julian Bast. See you next time.